When Nigeria's richest patriarch faked his own death to test his children's hearts, he didn't expect the gardener's son to be the one who passed. Now, with a glowing will in his hand and a nation watching, Alhaji Musa Danlami is about to rewrite not just his legacy, but the very meaning of family. In the heart of Abuja, behind tall black gates and trimmed hibiscus hedges, stood the grand mansion of Alhaji Musa Danlami, a man whose name alone opened doors. At 72, he had built an empire from nothing, multiple construction companies, estates across the country, and a chain of schools that bore his name. People called him Baba Gita, the city lion, but now the lion's roars were soft. He sat in his study most days, behind a thick glass window that overlooked the fountain garden. But today, he wasn't admiring the water. He was holding a picture frame. It was an old photo. Him, his late wife Amina, and their 4 children. The eldest, Farouk, a loud businessman who liked shiny watches and talking like a politician. The second son, Nasir, quiet, always traveling, hardly ever home. Then the twins, Samira and Zainab, who were more interested in Instagram filters and spa appointments than the affairs of the house. Alhaji Musa sighed and rubbed his gray beard. They all come around when there's a contract to sign or money to share. But who will sit by me if I can't speak again? If I lose my strength? He coughed softly and reached for his walking stick. An idea had been growing in his mind for months. A test, not of business, but of hearts. That evening, he called 2 of the few people he trusted. His lawyer, Barrister Dicko, and his longtime personal doctor, Dr. Henry Nwosu, to the house. They sat with him in the glass-walled study room, while the city lights blinked faintly outside. "I want to pretend I am dying," Alhaji Musa said slowly. "I want to see who truly cares for me, not for my money, lands, estates, company, or signature." The lawyer looked up from his notepad, surprised. "Sir, that's bold, but are you sure?" "I am." Alhaji nodded. "Barrister, open a fresh account. Move half of my wealth into it. Out of reach. Keep the details with you. If anybody tries anything, they'll find nothing." The doctor leaned forward. "And what would you like me to tell your family?" "That I have a rare heart condition," Alhaji replied. "A sickness that could take me any moment. That I need full rest. No stress. No business meetings." Dr. Henry nodded slowly. "I will act it well." The plan began the very next day. By noon, a black Prado Jeep pulled up to the front gate. Dr. Henry stepped out, his white coat swinging. Inside the mansion, the family had been summoned. They all sat in the expansive living room with its marble floors and gold-trimmed curtains, murmuring in confusion. The doctor adjusted his glasses and cleared his throat. "Your father has a serious condition. His heart is failing. It's rare and unpredictable. He may not live past 6 months if he doesn't rest completely." A sharp cry came from Samira. Zainab gasped. Nasir just looked away. Farouk stood still, jaw clenched. "What do we do now?" he asked. "Just show him love," Dr. Henry said. "He needs peace and your time more than anything else." From that moment, the house changed. Alhaji Musa moved from his master suite to a smaller room near the back of the mansion. He lay in bed, eyes half closed, coughing now and then, eating little. And he watched, always watched. For a few days, the family came around. Samira brought flowers. Farouk sat beside him and told boring business stories. Nasir even flew in from Lagos. They acted like they cared. But the old man knew love doesn't flicker and disappear like a candle flame. He just had to wait and listen and see who stayed when the drums went silent. By the 5th day, the hallway outside Alhaji Musa's new room was quieter than the courtyard at midnight. The tray of 2-0 shinkafa left by the cook remained untouched. Even the housemaids whispered less, sensing a strange tension growing in the mansion like a storm waiting to explode. Alhaji Musa lay on his bed, thin blanket over his legs, eyes closed but ears open. The CCTV camera hidden in the corner of his bookshelf blinked red, recording everything. The first to begin changing was Samira. She arrived that morning with a bright scarf and long lashes, snapping selfies in the living room. After 10 minutes, she peeped into her father's room, waved her fingers, and said, "Hi, Daddy. Get well soon, yeah? Love you." She turned before waiting for an answer. Outside the room, she whispered to the maid, "I'll be at the spa. Text me if the lawyer comes." That afternoon, Farouk entered the study without knocking. He was dressed in a navy caftan and wore a wristwatch so large it looked like a clock tower. He sat at his father's desk and picked up a folder labeled Northern Estates Rental Yields. He muttered. "This could make a strong campaign if I position it well." He pulled out his phone and dialed a number. "Hello, Sonny? That land near was 2. Check if Daddy's sign-off is still required for selling it. If he's sick, maybe I can sign under power of attorney." From the hallway camera, Alhaji Musa's eyes watched coldly through the tablet screen. So it begins, he thought. Not even 2 weeks. Nasir came next. He stayed longer than the others, reading Quran softly at the old man's bedside and helping the nurse with medicine. But even he began to fade. One evening, Nasir sat beside the bed, eyes downcast. "Baba," he said, "I may have to return to Port Harcourt. My business is suffering. I'll send money, but I can't stay. Please don't be angry." Alhaji Musa gave a weak nod. But it wasn't anger that filled him. It was disappointment. And then there was Zainab. One night, when she thought no one was looking, she entered the master bedroom, the one her father had vacated, and began trying on her mother's old gold bangles, luxury dress, luxury handbag. She held up a mirror, smiled, and whispered, "Soon, this will all be mine." She didn't know the nanny was watching through the slightly open door. Later that night, the old man sat up alone in the dim room, coughing quietly. "My blood, my name, and this is what they become," he whispered. "Are my children only shadows of the riches I gave them?" He felt a warm hand touch his fingers. It was Halima, his housekeeper of 18 years, a calm woman with tribal marks on her cheeks and kindness in her eyes. "You should eat, Alhaji," she said gently. "You've lost too much weight, even if it's just pap." He looked up and managed a tired smile. "You have served me like a daughter, Halima, more than those I raised in my arms." She shook her head. "They are still your children. But when gold shines too bright, people stop seeing the hand that gave it to them." At that moment, the door creaked open, and for the first time in 3 days, someone walked in without a phone, without a mirror, without questions about documents. It was Aminu, the gardener's son, 24 years old, humble, soft-spoken. He held a thermos flask and a stool. "Good evening, Baba. I made zobo, with ginger. Mama said it helps blood pressure." Alhaji Musa blinked. "You made this for me?" Aminu nodded shyly. "I heard you coughing last night." The old man's lips trembled, not from sickness, but emotion. "Thank you, my boy," he whispered. When Aminu left the room, Halima turned to Alhaji Musa. "Perhaps blood is not always the one in your veins, but the one that stays by your side when everyone else walks away." The old man leaned back, heart heavy. The real test had just begun, and already the answers were showing. One morning, the sound of laughter rang out from the courtyard. It wasn't from the children. It was from Farouk, dressed in a white igbada and leather slippers, shaking hands with 2 sharply dressed young men holding briefcases. Alhaji Musa, watching from the CCTV feed in his tablet, zoomed in. The audio was faint, but his son's voice was loud enough to make out. "And you know what I always say, business doesn't wait for sickness. Baba is still breathing, but the company needs fresh blood. I'm the fresh blood." One of the men chuckled. "You're already acting like the chairman." Farouk smiled smugly. "He taught me well. He built the empire, but I'll modernize it." The other man leaned in. "So, that Okoye land, can we move forward?" Farouk paused. "Yes, the papers are in the study. I'll bring them by tomorrow." Inside his room, Alhaji Musa dropped the tablet slowly onto the bed. His hands shook, not from age, but rage. "That land was for the scholarship fund," he murmured, "to send 100 children to school every year." He closed his eyes in pain. By evening, the house had changed again. Zainab was planning her birthday party, complete with a DJ, Ankara dress code, and a cow for grand entry. She never stepped into her father's room once that day. Nasir, meanwhile, had left quietly for Port Harcourt that morning. He said he had a meeting, but he hadn't even said goodbye. Downstairs, Halima sat with Aminu under the mango tree, peeling garden eggs. "I don't understand them," Aminu said. "I see the old man every day. I clean the garden by his window. He doesn't even sleep properly. Yet they don't sit with him." Halima gave a tired sigh. Pride makes people blind. And when you feed people too much sugar, they start calling bitter things poison. Back upstairs, Alhaji Musa opened a drawer beside his bed. Inside were 5 files, one for each child and one labeled legacy. He opened Farouk's file. Inside was a single sentence he had written 2 weeks ago. "Big mind, small heart, dangerous hands." He opened Zainab's file. All mirror, no depth, no service. He paused at Nasir's file. Kind soul, but absent, no roots. He moved to the legacy file. It was empty. He stared at it for a long time, then whispered, "Will I die and leave nothing behind but greed?" Just then, someone knocked. He turned quickly. The knock was soft, respectful. "Enter." The door opened slowly, and in came Aminu, this time not with Zobo, but with something else. A red book. "I found this, sir," he said. "It was in the back garden." Looked like someone threw out the window. Alhaji Musa took it with a furrowed brow. He opened the cover. It was his personal prayer journal, the one he used to write reflections, ideas for charity, and memories of Amina, his late wife. It had been missing for days. "Who would throw this?" he asked. Amina looked nervous. "Forgive me, sir. I saw Miss Zainab by the upstairs balcony yesterday. She was holding a red book and saying, 'This old man and his backward ideas, we don't need these.'" Alhaji Musa closed the book tightly, his breath heavy. In that moment, he felt something shift inside his chest, not pain, but resolve. The next morning, Barrister Dicko arrived at 6 a.m., confused. "You call me urgently?" The old man handed him a sealed brown envelope. "I need you to file these changes." Quietly, immediately, the lawyer opened the envelope, and his eyes widened. "You're serious?" "Dead serious," Musa said with steel in his voice. "I'm still alive, and now I act." The mansion was unusually loud that morning. Farouk stood in the middle of the living room, waving a set of printed documents and shouting over the butler's head. I said, "Prepare the black Lexus. We're heading to the company headquarters." The butler bowed. "But sir, shouldn't we inform?" "Inform who?" Farouk barked. "My father is sick, practically dying. The company cannot wait." From the top of the staircase, Zainab descended in heels too high for comfort, holding her phone to her ear. DJ shake a legs. She was saying, "Yes, the party is still on. No, my father's sickness shouldn't stop the vibes. Life must go on." The moment she stepped off the stairs, she met Farouk's eyes. "Don't look at me like that," she said. "At least I'm not pretending to be a CEO." Farouk's nostrils flared. "At least I'm trying to preserve what's left." Zainab rolled her eyes. "Please, you're just laying groundwork for when the will is read." From the hallway, Nasir had just returned from his trip. He dropped his suitcase and sighed. "You two are unbelievable," he said. "Baba's still alive. Have some respect." Zainab scoffed. "Respect is earned, not wheezed out from a dying bed." At that moment, the cook passed through the corridor, carrying a tray of untouched porridge from Alhaji Musa's room. She paused at the sight of the 3 grown children glaring at each other. "Una papa still day upstairs, oh," she muttered under her breath. But no one heard her. Upstairs, Alhaji Musa sat by the window, dressed in his finest white kaftan, prayer cap on his head. His back was straight. His eyes were sharp. He wasn't pretending anymore. He was recovering, slowly but strongly, thanks to peace, distance from stress, and a fire building deep inside him. Beside him, Halima adjusted his pillow and smiled. "Should I tell them you're better now?" "No," he said calmly. "Not yet. Let them finish their performance." Outside the door, Aminu stood with folded hands. Baba, your instructions have been followed. The lawyer has filed the ownership papers. The CCTV footage is saved on a private hard drive. All the files are safe. Musa nodded. Good. He turned to his mirror, looked at himself, and said, "Let the actors play till the curtains fall." Downstairs, the drama exploded. Nasir had opened one of the drawers in the study room and found the original deed papers for the Koi land. "What are these doing here?" he asked. Farouk snatched them from his hand. "None of your business." "You're trying to sell them behind everyone's back?" Nasir shouted. Zainab, hearing the commotion, leaned in. "Sell what?" Nasir turned on her. "While you're planning DJ nights and white horses, this one is trying to slice up Baba's properties like yam." Zainab slapped the table. "Don't yell at me. I'm the only one who visits Baba's room every week." Farouk laughed bitterly. "You mean the 5-second Instagram visits?" Voices grew louder. Hands flew. Accusations rained down. Suddenly, smash! A flower vase shattered on the ground. Halima stood at the foot of the stairs, her eyes blazing. "Shame on all of you," she said. The room went still. "Your father is alive. He's watching. You people are tearing each other like vultures over a corpse that hasn't died." Farouk opened his mouth to speak. "Shut it." Halima snapped. "You, with your suits and sunglasses. You, with your makeup and mirror. You, with your constant traveling. None of you has washed your father's hands. None of you fed him when he refused to eat. None of you stayed to talk when he cried in the night." She stepped forward, chest heaving. "The only person who has loved him like a true child is not even his child by blood. Aminu." From the staircase, Aminu appeared silently, holding a steaming bowl of soup. Zainab's jaw dropped. "The gardener's son?" Halima nodded. "Yes, and he has done more for your father than all three of you combined." In the silence, footsteps approached from behind. Strong, measured, familiar. Alhaji Musa Danlami entered the room, standing, calm, alive. The children froze. Farouk's voice shook. "Baba?" Zainab took a step back. You're standing." Nasir's knees gave out. "But they said you were dying." The old man looked at them one by one. And then, in a voice that carried thunder inside honey, he said, "You all failed the test." The silence in the mansion was loud. Farouk, Zainab, and Nasir stared at the man they had all quietly buried in their minds. Their father, Alhaji Musa Danlami, standing tall in his white kaftan, eyes sharp like steel, voice calm like judgment. "I watched," he said. "I listened. I waited." Zainab stepped forward, trembling. "Baba, we thought you were sick." "I was," he replied, "but not in my body and my heart." He turned to the maid. "Halima, bring the box." Halima returned with a brown wooden chest. Alhaji Musa opened it himself. Inside were CCTV hard drives, documents, and printed transcripts. I placed cameras in my room. I recorded every word, every whisper. I knew if I just sat still long enough, your true hearts will reveal themselves. He looked at Farouk. "You wanted to sell my Akoi land meant for scholarships. You misuse company funds. You fired my most loyal staff and surrounded yourself with flatterers." Farouk's lips trembled. I thought I was helping." "You were helping yourself," Musa said coldly. "You are hereby banned from stepping foot in my company again. Effective immediately." Farouk fell to his knees. "Baba, please." Alhaji Musa looked away. He turned to Zainab. "You laughed while I coughed. You threw away my prayer journal. You mocked my old ways. You turned grief into glitter and a sickbed into stage lights." Zainab broke into tears. "I didn't mean it. I was scared. I was just... You were selfish and careless with what should have been sacred." He pointed at Nasir next. "You ran from responsibility. You called from a distance. Sent money but never your time. When I needed a son, I got silence." Nasir whispered, "I didn't know how to help." Musa's eyes softened briefly. "You didn't try. That was your failure." Then the old man turned. He pointed at Aminu, standing silently by the door. And you? The room held its breath. You are not my son by blood, but you became my son by actions. Aminu's eyes widened. Baba, you wiped my mouth when others wiped my name. You fed me. You listened. You prayed. You didn't have a mansion or title, but you had the one thing I longed for, loyalty. He turned to Barrister Dicko, who had just entered, holding a new envelope. Read it. The lawyer cleared his throat. As per Alhaji Musa Danlami's updated directive, witness and file legally his construction empire, the Danlami Foundation, all real estate properties, liquid assets, and investments have been reassigned under a new leadership trust. The successor and primary beneficiary is... He paused. Aminu Kabir. Gasps filled the room like thunder. What? Farouk stood up. The gardener's son? You can't do that. Zainab cried. He's not even family. Nasir stood frozen, pale and stunned. Alhaji Musa raised his hand. This house taught me something, he said slowly. Blood does not raise a legacy. Character does. He walked over to Aminu and placed his hand on his shoulder. This young man will now carry my name. He will continue the work I began, not with greed, but with heart. Then he turned to the twins, and Nasir one last time. If you want to inherit anything from me now, earn it. Apologize with your actions, not your lips. And remember, there is no shortcut to love, only service. Farouk collapsed back into the chair, defeated. Zainab stormed out, tears smearing her mascara. Nasir bowed his head. I'll do better, he said quietly. The old man didn't answer. He simply walked away, slowly, proudly, into the warm Abuja sunlight. And Aminu, the humble gardener's son, stood with tears in his eyes, not because of wealth, but because a man he called Baba had believed in him. 1 year later, the Danlami group was thriving. The scholarship fund launched. Orphanage homes received grants. Loyal staff returned and were promoted. Aminu, now in fine suits, ran board meetings with grace. Yet he still greeted every staff member by name. Halima now ran the Danlami Foundation's Women's Empowerment Center. Farouk and Nasir opened a small plumbing company together. Slowly, humbly, they began to change. Zainab started a counseling program for young girls, finally understanding that legacy isn't about lights, but light. And Alhaji Musa? He smiled from his garden bench, sipping kunu, heart finally at peace. Because when the drums went silent, he heard the truth, and it was enough. And so, in the quiet rustle of hibiscus leaves and the laughter of scholarship children running through new school gates, Alhaji Musa Danlami found the peace he had long searched for, not in his wealth, nor in his bloodline, but in the legacy of character he left behind. In a world obsessed with inheritance, he chose something rarer, a successor heart. And under the Abuja sun, as the drums faded into memory, the city lion finally rested, knowing his roar now lived in better hands.